And we appreciate you guys taking time today to view this short presentation about a pilot project that we did last August called the IFC Educator Academy. What we wanted was to basically kind of establish a baseline of competency with some folks that would be willing to actually be on an armed team in a school. So we invited folks to come in, both educators, administrators, some other support staff. And we actually had a very good response to this. We had 32 people that were signed up initially. And then as word got that EMC, the main insurance carrier for Iowa, was going to cancel insurance or not renew insurance, folks kind of started dropping off. But we ended up with 13 people that went through this course. And helping me with that, Ed Monk, he's with Last Resort Firearms Training down in Arkansas, an extensive history of military, police, actually a teacher himself for a while, and now training this kind of work. And then Adam Winch, our go-to guy for all things active shooter, former, again, military, police, and now in the training world. So let's start with you, Ed. What kind of past experience do you bring to our IFC Educator Academy that folks really need to take note of and listen to what you have to say?
Yeah, thanks, John. I retired as an Army Lieutenant Colonel in 2007 after 24 years active duty. And then immediately after retiring from the Army, I began teaching in a public high school. And that's where I saw firsthand the problems that our school's active shooter response plans have.
Mm-hmm.
The school I went into, like almost all schools in America, they have a passive policy of lockdown, call 911, and wait on somebody else to fix the problem. And that plays into the active shooter's plan. It actually makes his job easier and almost guarantees a high victim count. So that experience is what caused me to start researching this topic of the active shooter almost 16 years ago now. And I've been a firearms instructor and a law enforcement officer for 15 years, as you've said, which gives me additional perspectives about this threat and how to deal with it.
All right, Adam, I brought you in specifically because we trained together over several months in an instructor certification. I could really see that you had a heart for this kind of work. So just give us a quick bio of your background.
So background, police officer for over a decade, SWAT, street crimes, all that type of stuff, trainer. Military too, of course. And in both the police world and the military world, I was on different tactical teams. So did a lot of training specifically for the active shooter event, did a lot of training for that. And we were constantly watching for that. I mean, that was part of our job description in a sense. And to me, having trained this so much and knowing that as a cop, when I respond to something that's happening at a school or some large gathering, I'm always 5, 10, 7, 12 minutes behind from the moment we even get the call. Mm-hmm. So knowing that, I mean, there's a massive body count that can be done in those time frames. Well, the cop on the street who desperately wants to be there to help save life, it's going to take the time to respond to get there, and a lot of lives are lost then. So exactly what Ed is preaching, will be preaching here, and that you do, John, is exactly the time and math problem. I know as a cop, I can't get there in time. So therefore, I want to train the people that can be there, who are there right there in the immediacy of it. And that's the whole intent purpose behind this.
All right, excellent. So kind of my hypothesis going into this is we could take people from kind of a baseline of maybe having zero firearms experience or maybe just a concealed carry permit. Some took them online. Some have actually had, an actual class where they got to do some shooting. And over a course of around 36 hours, we ended up doing that in 3 long 12-hour days, bring them up to where I figured, maybe 3/4, maybe 70% could actually pass something like similar to the FBI qualification. And we started that all based on Ed's research. On day one, we had 4 hours of classroom with Ed. So we don't have 4 hours today. We've told folks that are watching that we're going to try to keep this like at 15 minutes or so. But Ed, would you just jump in, share a few slides that you showed to the educators that attended the Academy last August? And let's just laser focus right in on what is the active shooter problem and how do we solve it?
Sure, John. So here we go. So you already mentioned it. The problem with the active shooter and the response for it is time and math. It's that simple. It's time and math. The active shooter is going to start in a crowded place. So it's going to be very easy for him to go from his first victim to his second victim to his third victim. A good planning factor I found in research is he's going to shoot somebody roughly a new person every 3 to 5 seconds in the first minute, every 6 to 8 seconds, a new person shot in the second minute. He'll shoot a new person every 10 to 12 seconds in the third minute. His shoot rate's going to slow down as people take evasive measures and run away. So that first couple of minutes is going to be by far the worst. So this timeline shows the problem. In minutes from when the first shot is fired, how long we let him shoot unopposed determines how many people will have shot. So the longer we let him shoot, the more victims. I like to think of it the other way. The more quickly we stop him, the fewer victims we'll have. So I like talking about the fewer victims options. Mathematically, the only way to have a good expectation of a low victim count, a single-digit victim count, is to stop him in the first 30 seconds. It's not a guarantee, but it's got a very high success rate.
Mm-hmm.
We have to stop him in the first 30 seconds. There's no way to get a cop who's not standing right there when it starts to get a cop there within 30 seconds. So the cop can't be the answer to this. Only the people there, the intended victims, can stop it in the first 30 seconds. So it's not important who stops him. I don't care if a cop stops him, a student stops him, a teacher stops him, a principal stops him. I care about how quickly we stop him. There's a lot of myths out there that keep us from doing the right thing. One is that this active shooter threat is a law enforcement problem to solve. And that's why we keep getting a high victim count, because no matter how brave and well-equipped cops are, it just takes them too long to get there. Cops can almost never get there quick enough. So a lot of our focus has been on how do we train cops better? How do we notify cops quicker and get them there faster? That's never going to get us a single-digit victim count. We have to start focusing on other things. People think that Parkland and Uvalde, most of the people shot there were because of bad police response, and that's not true. It's due to bad school plans, the passive hunker down and wait. There was 24 people shot before the SRO at Parkland ever got to the building. So the fact that he wasn't aggressive once he got to the building wouldn't have any effect on the fact that there were double-digit 24 people shot. Uvalde, yeah, the cops did not do well after they got in the building, but the shooter had already shot the vast majority of his people before the cops got in the building and started making the mistakes. Lockdown drills are seen nationwide as the best practice to the active shooter, and that's ridiculous. The Parkland shooter shot 18 of his 24 victims on the first floor by standing in the hallway and shooting through the classroom doors. He never entered a classroom. So this thing about locking the doors and staying in your locked classroom protecting us is an absolute myth. And how to lock down drills protect you in the cafeteria or the playground or the media centers. Why do we use them then if they're not good? Well, because they're easy to drill and they work extremely well every day the shooter doesn't show up. But they don't work well on the days that the shooter does show up. And then we spend a lot of effort on hardening the building. Well, middle and high school active shooter attacks, the shooter is almost always a student of that school. So he's already in the building. So hardening the outside of the building, making it harder to get into, is only going to have the negative effect of delaying cops and EMS. So hardening is not necessarily the answer. And it might actually cause a problem because it might delay cops and EMS. Armed schools have been horribly failing at the active shooter for 4 decades. There's just some examples up there. Most schools in America have one of two options, one of two plans. One is call 911 and wait, let him shoot us until the cops get here. Or a slight variation is we have an SRO somewhere on campus and we'll also call 911. People think if we have an SRO on campus, we're safe. The active shooter in a middle and a high school is not going to start his attack close to the SRO. In Columbine, it took the cop 4 to 5 minutes, the SRO on campus 4 to 5 minutes to get to the active shooter attack. So just having a cop somewhere on the campus, there's too many buildings to cover, too many wings and buildings to cover. Schools fail because they rely on the country's default plan of call 911 and wait, and that gives us a high victim count. So we have to opt out of the country's default plan and make our own plan of we, the school, we are going to have this stopped. We are going to immediately counterattack and have this attack stop before the first cop or ambulance gets here. I think this ought to be our goal for school active shooter attacks, a single-digit victim count on any future attack. How can we get that? I only know of one possible mathematical way, and that's to immediately counterattack. We counterattack and stop him in the first 30 seconds. How can we do that successfully? There's 2 ways to do it, with a gun and without a gun. They can both work, but the armed option works far better than the unarmed option. If we're going to try to protect our students and staff, there's all kinds of tools we can use to fight the active shooter. We need to pick the best, most effective tool, and that's the gun. There are successful unarmed people who have stopped active shooters, but it's not nearly as successful as those with guns. And that's it, John.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ed. And this definitely hits close to home because we had a shooter in a Perry school, ended up with a much-loved principal who had interfaced with literally thousands of students. He died trying to talk the person down or getting involved in some way that's not totally clear yet. And, I thought after that, the response for your kind of training would be like, yes, we must do it. But what I'm hearing from our lawmakers is that let's just put state funding out to make sure there's at least one SRO on every campus. And you just basically said that's, God bless the SRO who's there, but it's a myth that they're going to be all places close enough to hear, close enough to respond within 30 seconds. That's just not going to happen unless it just happens to line up exactly right one day.
Yeah, Santa Fe High School in Texas had 2 SROs on campus, but the shooter was a student and did not start where those 2 SROs were. He started in a different building. So I showed you this. Parkland settled for $25 million to the parents of the people that were shot. There's currently a $27 billion with a B billion-dollar lawsuit filed for Uvalde. So that's the price of not protecting our kids.
We're training a teacher for maybe $1,000. They go buy a nice handgun for $500 or $600, spend a few $100s in ammo, some recurrent training, and annual qualification. That's a heck of a lot less than the payouts that we're seeing with these tragedies across the country.
To John, to add to what you just said, it now allows the people that are present and willing right then and there to be able to do something about it. And right now, our teachers our educators have become so because they love these kids. Mm-hmm. Right. And there is a large proportion that if they were given the opportunity to defend these kids, they would jump at the opportunity if they were allowed to do so.
And that was the intent of, seeing how many teachers would actually do this. And we had plenty that wanted to attend, just as the word trickled out and, the insurance companies putting the kibosh on that. But so our training was over 3 days. On day 1, we started with the very basics with all you guys on the range with me. We fixed a lot of things that people, thought they knew how to shoot or had, done some hunting or thought they knew about guns. So we fixed those things, moved on to like being a little bit quicker, balancing that accuracy with speed. And then moving into, identifying from paper targets, we went into photorealistic targets where they had to, does that guy have a tennis racket or a gun or a machete, not just shooting at something because there's something in their hands. And then you guys especially worked with the students on, shooting and moving. You may have to move in to be able to make your shot instead of, standing down the hallway 45 feet away. And then the things really got interesting on day 3. And talking with the folks who attended, it's like that force-on-force training that you set up, Adam, that went into people's hearts and said, wow, this is way more serious than I thought. I have to control my emotions. I have to step over people laying on the ground. So here's just a little video clip we'll show of what every person in that Educator Academy had to go through to learn some stress inoculation.
Bang, 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 bang. Bang, 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 bang.
Go.
Bang, bang, bang.
Go.
Push. 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 Now. Oh my God! Teacher, help. Get out. Get out. Help. Please. Please help me. Please help me. Get out. Come on. Help.
Oh no, they're doing this again.
Please help me. Ceasefire.
You could tell there was a little bit of surprise how realistic it seemed to them. At the same time, a determination, they're going to go do it. they've been there for it. They'd already made that decision ahead of time before they even came to this training, that if my day comes, I will go to that threat. And though there was a little bit of hesitation in this, you know, it was extremely momentary, and they just moved to it using the training. We'd worked on to that point, and it forced them to really think through, like you said, control their emotions, identify the right thing, not the wrong thing. Right? There's a lot of scared people movement, a lot of noise, and they had to work through that and then accurately engage if when they found the bad guy in this sense. And boy, I just saw them just drive right through the hesitation at first, the fear that was coming, and they just did it. They went and did the job.
People are popping out of rooms with cell phones. No, nobody shot the wrong person. And Adam, and I'll put this to Ed too, the pushback we're getting from the lawmakers is you cannot expect, excuse me, you cannot expect the teacher or administrator to perform like a cop. They're going to do the wrong thing. Well, we really didn't see a whole lot of that.
Let me address that, right? There is, this country is full of heartfelt people. And just because you're not a cop doesn't mean you're not heartfelt, valuable in this situation. And with a little bit of training, which is what we're doing, right? We're giving the same training to these guys we would teach my SWAT guys. And with a little bit of training, their chances of success are very high. And in fact, I would tell you, because they're so deliberate about this, civilians just don't shoot the wrong people in these cases, where we've seen that incident in the cop world, as Ed can talk about here, where civilians are very, very deliberate in what they do and very intentional. And the folks that come to this training, they're deliberate and intentional, and they're going and doing what they need to do.
Ed, you want to pick up on that? You know, just for the naysayers, can we teach these people to perform basically like we did on the third day of, after 36 hours of training, go through this force on force scenario?
Yeah, it amazes me. You know, you say we take this young adult or this adult that's entering the police academy, that human being can be trained to perform to a minimum standard with a handgun, but you can't take any other human being and train them on this physical skill. It just makes no sense at all. Armed citizens have never shot the wrong person while responding to and shooting and stopping an active shooter. Never. It's never happened. Cops have shot the wrong person while engaging an active shooter multiple times. Cops have shot each other, cop shooting cop by mistake at least 3 times, responding to an active shooter. 2 of those 3 times, they killed the other cop by mistake. So armed citizens actually have a much better safety record while stopping active shooters. Armed citizens stop the active shooter much more quickly than the cop, not because they're better than the cop, but because they're there, and it's going to take the cop several minutes to get there. And from what I'm looking at broadly, armed citizens have a better hit rate. You know, David George, a pastor in Washington, got 5 out of 5 hits. Eli Dickin got 8 out of 10 hits in the mall. Stephen Williford got 6 out of 6. John Hurley, 6 out of 8. Jack Wilson, 1 out of 1. Vic Stacy, 5 out of 5. Armed citizens have a much higher hit rate for the bullets they shoot at an active shooter than the cops in my research.
So we gave everybody a qualification. We did this for a couple reasons. One, to, you know, gauge how much progress we made. And the second reason is, you know, we've all been involved in teaching churches, and the main insurance company that covers churches and Christian schools and the like, you know, basically wanted a qualification. So we were hoping by using a similar qual that we could show the insurance companies in Iowa, here's the level we can train, here's about the time it's going to take, here's about the you know, the investment that schools will make in each of these folks that are authorized to carry the guns. And the difference between like what a FBI agent would shoot, they can shoot a target at 80% and pass, 90% if you're an FBI instructor. How ours was different is we held them to that 90% standard, but we did not allow them to have even one shot outside the silhouette. You know, the FBI guy can send 2 or 3 off to the side and still pass. But, you know, to get the insurance coverage, it said we will hold them to a standard where if they miss even one shot, they have to come back for more training and try to requalify. Now, from a Second Amendment standpoint, I just say, you know, if you have a concealed carry permit, you know, God bless you. That's your right here. Carry a gun in the schools. But what do you think of the qualification? I know, Ed, from you do active shooter all the time. a lot of folks will hit at 3 or 7 and they know that's as good as I can do. So I'm going to have to move forward versus the Jack Wilsons of the earth who at 15 yards can do a headshot.
Yeah, and consistency is more important than occasional long range ability. Here in Arkansas, cops only have to shoot at 80% on qualification. If they fail to meet that, they just go load their magazines and try again. I see cops meet the minimum standard out of 50 rounds by missing the target completely 4, 5, and 6. And everybody thinks there's no problem with cops carrying in school. Yeah, people with concealed carries across the country aren't shooting the wrong people. They're not causing problems. So I'm all for training. It's good to have training, both for the skill, but also of the competence that the person has. So that's the kind of thing that these kind of qualifications do. They show not only everybody else, but the person carrying the gun that I can meet this standard and I can meet it consistently, and to know my ability and work within my ability.
Well, the other thing I think it does is it forces people to keep going to the range, keep taking training. You know, on a church team, we have quarterly tactical training we have to do, as well as the annual requalification. So literally nobody ever fails the qual because you've been shooting throughout the year to keep your skills up. You know, a pilot, a surgeon would never just like not do anything and then attempt to do surgery after being off for a year. So, I think we're telling people, this is important. Let's keep doing it. So we had 13 that took that qualification. We had 2 that shot exactly perfect, 250 out of 250. So each round, 50 rounds, each worth 5 points. 10 of those actually achieved the passing score above 90. And then we had 3 that had targets that, kind of drifted outside the silhouette. So we had to say, well, that'd be a DQ, but, please don't give up. Let's keep training, and let's, at a future time, come back and shoot again or take more training. So first of all, just kind of wrapping up, what did you see that was most valuable in the 3 days that we spent together? And number 2, if we can get this going, would you come back and do it again with us?
For me, I will absolutely come back. My bags are packed. Just let me know. I will help to whatever extent I am asked to help design it, to set it up, to instruct it. I'll come up and paste targets and help Adam do it. I'll do whatever I can. The biggest thing I was impressed with about that training is we had volunteers that came there and did 18-hour days, and not one complaint, not one lower effort. They stayed motivated and focused the whole time, the whole 3 days. We're happy to be there, glad to get the training. That was exceptional compared to some other audiences, some other populations that we train.
Right.
I'm like Ed. I would jump on a plane today or jump in my truck to get there today to do this again. Right. This is part of the mission of what I'm here to do, is to help others be able to protect others. And what was so impressive to me, and very much in line with what Ed said, is people came in so open, and I mean, we stuffed so much technical knowledge, mechanical skill, and just hard work into these people, and they took it like champs. And what was so interesting is they absorbed all of Ed's research and information, realized the gravity of it all, and realized how important it was that they be there, and not only that, be well trained in this. And we saw people work so hard and learn so much to try to get that 100% hit factor on their targets, because that's so utterly important to do. Right? You've got to keep your bullets where you intend to keep them. And they worked so hard for it, but they also internalized a lot of the mental lessons, the emotional lessons that were involved in this. And I just saw themselves throw themselves into this process. I mean, we threw the entire kitchen sink at these people, and they took it like crazy. And I just saw that determination just grow more and more in them. And that was such a good thing to see. And our schools need people like those. And I'm just grateful that we 3 are able to be a part of helping them achieve the protective status our schools need.
Yeah, so it showed that schools will send people to training. There are people in the schools, some schools, maybe 25 or 30%, are willing to do this. And the Iowa Firearms Coalition stands by to help them, whether we train them, whether we organize training, whether we give them best practices. That's what we're here to do. So I'm going to put all of our emails up on the screen. Please feel free to contact any of us if you have questions, if you have a school in your district, if you're on the school board, maybe you're one of the lawmakers that are watching and want more information or want Ed to come and personally take you through his entire range of information, because once you watch it, there is no argument against time and math. Those are the critical factors. There's no way around it. So let's get together and get the job done. Thank you everyone for watching, and we'll be talking again soon.